from our review of chi-square tests. A survey asked Democrat, Republicans, and independent voters what the most important message is to send to Congress. The most popular response for all three groups was to focus on the economy. The number of respondents, the messages they want sent, and their party affiliations are shown in the accompanying table. So if we look at the data, here we've got a two-way table, a contingency table, that looks at party affiliation versus their response, economy or other. So what we're going to do here is open the data in StatCrunch. So it's summarized essentially in a table. And in part A, it says using a significance level of alpha equal 0.05, perform a chi-square test to determine if the proportion of voters who respond focus on the economy differs among the three groups. So here, essentially what we're looking at is that these proportions are all the same going across the different party affiliations versus they're not all the same. They're not all equal. So B would be our hypothesis. So we're going to do a chi-square test. So here what I'm going to do is in StatCrunch, choose tables, contingency table, and with summary. We have a summary table. So here we have our columns. So I'll highlight Democrat, Republican, and Independent, and the row labels will be, in this case, the message. So we're going to do a chi-square test of independence. So I'll hit compute. And so here I have my test, and in my chi-square test I have my test statistic. And so here it says to enter it rounded to 2 decimal places. So my test statistic will be 11.42, I'm sorry, 11.41. It's my chi-square value, and my p-value, 3 decimal places, is 0.003. So in this case, our test statistic is quite large and our p-value then is quite small. Our p-value is less than the significance level, 0.05. So I here would reach the decision to reject the null hypothesis. And so they first kind of ask us, what does the p-value mean? And so here it says, given a very large number of samples, there is a blank % chance of observing a sample with the giving data. Option B, there is a blank % chance of observing a test statistic value greater than the actual test statistic value if there is no difference in the voter populations. So the idea here is, if the null hypothesis is true, how likely are we to see a test statistic as large as the one we saw or greater, more in favor of the alternative hypothesis? So in this case, the p-value, there is a blank % chance. So if we turn our p-value into percent, this would be a 0.3% chance of observing a test statistic value greater than the one that we actually witnessed, if indeed there was no difference in the voter proportions. So we're going to reject the null hypothesis in favor of there being a difference. So what is the correct conclusion? We reject the null hypothesis. There is enough evidence to conclude the proportions of voters differ among these three groups. So D is our option. And then it asks for a little more explanation. It says, how does party affiliation appear to affect the likelihood that a voter will choose the focus on the economy message to send to Congress? So here, in some sense, we can look at the data. If we look at it, both the Democrats and the Republicans, fewer than 50% actually chose focus on the economy as the #1 option, where independents, it exceeded 50%. So here, if we look at option A, it appears that independents are much more likely to want to send this message to Congress than Democrats or Republican, who are fairly close in likelihood. So option A is just kind of looking at the data and comparing the ratios and the percentages as they would appear. So here we've done a chi-square test, essentially to kind of test to see if all the proportions are equal across the different groups. Hope this helps.